Hello, everyone. Just by way of introduction, I want to say my name is Scott Susong. I'm starting this fall at Nebraska Wesleyan, and four of my colleagues joined us on this panel. We lost one along the way. Aaron had a family conflict and couldn't be with us tonight, but we're going to go through and introduce ourselves and give a little snapshot of either past programs or programs that we are currently or about to start to work with, as a little bit of a kind of just a springboard into discussion. I wanted to share a bit of an agenda with you. I'm struggling with my PowerPoint to be able to bring it up because I'm inept and I have like trauma response to our years of Zooming. But I'm going to go through it really quickly, just verbally. So we're going to spend about 5 minutes here saying hello, and then we're going to go into these brief snapshots. We're talking about Michigan and Ball State, Purdue, Fort Wayne, Nebraska Wesleyan, Illinois Wesleyan, ONU, and Nazareth. That'll take about 20 minutes, and then we're going to open it up to a big discussion where we talk about similarities and differences, and then connecting the dots and solutions and takeaways. About 20 minutes on each of those, and then a little time to wrap up and acknowledge things and talk about the future of MTE acting. So I hope that all makes sense to everybody. And let me see if I can get back to my Zoom now as I was reading that. And I'm just going to pass it off to Andre. He's going to start with our snapshots.
Hi, everybody. Yes, André Garner. I'm currently at the University of Michigan after being at Ball State University. Um, uh, it, Michigan is an R1 university. I think we have 90 musical theater majors, 92, between 92 and 96. Um, so which is pretty much in line with what Ball State had as well. I was at Ball State for 7 years before coming here. Um, I guess as a snapshot, I would say that the thing about both universities, which actually I appreciate, is the fact that they're very much interested in developing actors, musical theater actors who can use their degree with transferable skills. So I think that is very important I think that's always been important for musical theater majors. Unless you're Audra McDonald, then you're always going to work on Broadway, but not all of us are Audra. So I think that's a very, very notable um, aspect of both programs. But I want to talk a little bit about how University of Michigan approaches their acting progression, which has actually changed recently because the first year now we have acting first both semesters of the first year, which is a change, but historically they had began their acting progression the second semester of their sophomore year. So they've started, since there was a groundswell from previous faculty to institute more acting, which I assume we all will agree is a notable change. So that's how they do it. And then the first year now, the way that the progression is for the first year is basically it starts with um, focus on relaxation techniques, awareness of the body, and fostering empathy as a communicator, deal with foundational acting concepts and methodologies. Um, the first year will be primarily Uta Hagen and Meisner. There's a focus on text interpretation, character analysis, text interpretation, and viewpoints. Um, the first year, it's now taught only by musical theater faculty. Before, it was taught by the theater and drama or the acting um, major faculty, but now it's exclusively taught by musical theater. Um, and so the second year, after the 2 semesters of their acting progression, it becomes focused on performance. So now we've started to merge acting with singing in the sophomore year with sophomore performance. That would be 2 semesters of those classes. But I think it's important to view the acting and performance sequences as complementary partners. So that even though we've introduced singing, there's still a focus on the acting concepts. And the course is taught very much from an acting perspective. And so that's sophomore, and that in sophomore performance, it's the course uses basically the foundational thoughts and concepts from freshman acting, but it also starts working towards merging the individual with character, and it's character based and character driven. Um, Also in that sophomore year, the second semester has heightened language and text. That course is taught by theater and drama faculty. Junior year starts developing naturalism, and the courses on junior year will be acting for the camera, which is also taught by theater and drama faculty. So those two courses are the ones that are um, presently taught by a theater and drama faculty, but not by musical theater faculty. So there's, as I said, acting for the camera and acting American realism course. That is considered acting six. That is in the spring of the junior year. And that course, that has a Stella Adler Foundation. Um, and the senior year will be, they have senior acting, which is where the students work on owning their process, discovering how to bring their authentic selves to each role, and preparing to enter the professional world. They also have junior performance. There's one semester of that junior year, which is it's continuation of what is worked on in sophomore um, performance, although sophomore performance focuses more on, I'd say, pre-1960s, 1960s and before, musicals, and junior year is a little more contemporary in junior performance. And there's also senior performance, which is does it's more preparation um, for the a career in musical theater, but with self tapes, and so it's for theater as well as for TV and film. So those are that's the acting progression for the University of Michigan. And go blue. Did I get it on time? How much was it? What time was that? Was that beautiful?
All right, I'll go next. I am Dr. Julie Lynn Barber. I go by Julie Lynn and use she, her pronouns. I am currently assistant professor of acting and musical theater and head of musical theater at Purdue University, Fort Wayne, Indiana. We are a department of theater within a college of visual and performing arts. We have a great relationship with the School of Music, which is in the same college, and that is where our students do all of their music-only classes. At PFW, we have a BA with 4 concentrations, design, tech, directing, acting, and MT. And then we also have a BA in musical theater that just graduated our first class this year. We only have about 40 majors total, so we're a really small department, and almost half of those are in the BFA musical theater program. We've got 7 full-time faculty. As far as curriculum goes, acting and music theater majors take the same acting capital A classes, so acting 1, 2, 3, and 4, as well as voice for the actor. They both are required to take voice for the actor and movement for the actor as well. And then there are musical theater focused acting classes. We call them musical theater performance 1 and performance 2, as well as musical theater styles. And they also do a capstone class, which is a one-on-one, usually tied to a major role in junior or senior year, where we really make them have a look at what am I using from this class in my preparation for this role. So because of our small class sizes, and there are 2 of us that teach the acting complement, the head of acting, Jeff Casaza, and then I teach all the music theater classes, and I teach acting 1 and 4. We trade off acting 2 and 3, he teaches movement and voice, and then I teach the performance classes. So every student does acting 1 and 2 in the first year, but then depending whether they're an odd year start or an even year start, so this fall will be an odd year start, they may take acting 3 right away, or there may be a year before they take acting 3. Similarly with music theater performance 1. So if it's a year on acting 3, you're in music theater performance 1 during that year, so you don't have a big gap. But that can be challenging because I'll have sophomores and juniors in acting 3 or music theater performance 1, and then juniors and seniors in acting for styles. So it's kind of, it can't really be, this is a junior year class, this is a senior year class. We really love the multi-hyphenate artists. Many of us on faculty are, directors who act and designers who sing and all the rest. So we really encourage that from our students with a lot of kind of dabbling, which also sometimes then helps students realize there is some other aspect that the musical theater bug got them in the door, and then they realize actually they love something else even more. Something else I really like about our program to them for musical theater and actors, stage management is a required course. So as someone who's built a career out of putting all the gazillion gig and pieces together, I think it's great for them to make sure they get their 12 weeks of equity health insurance if they can do some ASM gigs on the side, as well as getting that great perspective of being on both sides of the stage. So that's kind of my snapshot.
Y'all are doing so great on time. Okay, I'm going to jump in. So as I said, next month, I officially begin my tenure at Nebraska Wesleyan University, and I'm ensconced in learning everything about my new community. But since I haven't quite started there yet, I'm going to spend most of my time tonight talking about where I spent 17 years, which is Illinois Wesleyan University, or where I spent this past year, Ohio Northern University. I do want to point out that Justin Brill is running the music theater program at Illinois Wesleyan now, and Tim McGarrickle will be taking over next month at ONU. So just to remember that the difference between past and present, I'm past, they're present and future. And so I'm sure some things have changed as they will leave their mark on these programs as I left mine while I was there. One of the things I love about theater curricula in general is that or what I believe in is that it has to stay dynamic and always evolving and changing. And we spend a lot of time doing that. But just to kind of enumerate, as Andre and Julie Lynn did, the sequence at Illinois Wesleyan is a fundamental 3-semester sequence. When it comes to acting, the students that come in as BFA actors or BFA music theater, so all BFAs together, not the BAs, take the same fundamentals together. They take an acting 1 course that is basically geared towards the solo actor. What did I say about it? It deals with vocabulary, non-textual exercises, as well as monologues and emerging craft development. In the 2nd semester, that is it emphasizes collaboration, script analysis, page-to-stage adaptation, and refining that acting process and what they've learned at that point. When they get to Acting 3, which would be the 1st semester of their sophomore year, that's when it truly is an advancing study, investigating American modern theater. That would be like Williams, Miller, Hansberry, some heightened kind of style, not heightened language, but heightened style, like Noel Coward, things like that, comedy of manners, and a contemporary identity-driven pieces. Those pieces are more tied to who they are and can be tailored to their own experience because they're contemporary. And when they finish that semester at the end of the beginning, in the middle point of their sophomore year, they then break off. The BFA actors go their way and the music theater go their way. Music theater goes into acting the song. BFA actors go into advanced scene study. At ONU, it's a little different. They spend the 1st semester in a very large course that's kind of a catch-all course, a performance course that involves all the BAs and the BFA music theater. Anyone who has a performance concentration or desire to perform are all in the same class to learn kind of general vocabulary and an emerging process. 2nd semester, they spend it in a combined voice speech course. And then in their 3rd semester, they go into Michael Chekhov training. And then after that, music theater will split off. And frankly, they don't have they have like advanced acting electives, but not a specific dedicated course where acting is at the precipice for the rest of their time there. Both institutions presume that acting will continue to be emphasized once that split happens. I would hope that it does, but that would depend on who you spoke to. Um, so through the sophomore to the senior year at Illinois Wesleyan, those second semester sophomores go into acting the song. Then in their they have electives available to them, Shakespeare, acting for the camera, things like that. In the fall, in the spring, they have their second integration musical theater course. That could be music theater scene study, or it could be music theater workshop, because those classes are taught on rotation. And we can talk about that later, about rotation, the pros and cons of rotation, but the necessity of it often when it comes to curricula. And for ONU, they only have the single music theater acting styles, is what's it called, the second semester of their sophomore year. And then they really go into professional prep or elective acting courses. At IW, they implement a single movement class for actors in the second semester of their first year while they're taking acting too. And then they have some speaking vocal classes that are available to them. Those are mainly for BFA actors and not for music theater, because the assumption was that they have voice lessons, so they're learning how to use their voice. Anyone who does this knows that that's not true. They mostly, what they do is they get the kind of quarter semester, half semester, the ones that are surrounding IPA and how to do dialects, which is useful because at ONU, they don't have that at all. They have no speech level kind of acting course aside from that second semester. And so they don't have any IPA or dialects. So when you run into that in production, you just either have to have a dialect coach or be available to be one yourself. I'm going to actually conclude my portion there because I want to make sure I allocate enough time for later and for everybody else to talk. But I just want to say that I've been doing this for a long time and at several different institutions. I think that what I think now at 25 years later is that there isn't any best practices, that we're always trying to kind of change and move the ball forward. I think there's been a huge shift post-pandemic in the kind of student that we're dealing with, and also their readiness to work in ways that we are used to using from the 20th and early 21st century that may not be as effective. So that I think will come up in discussion tonight, but I'm going to cede the rest of my time to Nicolette.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here. My name is Nicolette Hart. I'm an associate professor and the incoming new director of the musical theater BFA at Nazareth University. This will be my 9th year at Nazareth, which is a private, small institution in upstate New York, kind of perfectly wedged between Buffalo and Syracuse. We've got about 2,000 undergraduates, 115 of which are musical theater BFA majors, which are the students that I primarily deal with. We also have about 20 minors. We have a BFA in design and tech. We have a new BFA starting this fall in acting for stage and screen. That has been an interesting consideration over the last several years, is that our acting program was suspended while we had some retirements and restructure and sort of a curricular upheaval, which was really refreshing and kind of fabulous. But now, as we head into this new fall semester with a new BFA, it's interesting. There will be some new sort of territorial stuff happening, and I realize, oh, my students aren't going to be able to be in all the plays anymore. What's going to happen? We're going to need more opportunities, but we can talk about that later. Anyway, we are a liberal arts institution. It's conservatory style training within a liberal arts institution, so they do take a course in 7 other areas, which, unlike Julie Lynn's curriculum, ours is forced to be fairly prescribed. So they do follow a very prescribed plan for all 4 years, with room to have a minor or a double minor, which I love about the program, just in terms of sort of deep toolbox and all of that. Our students, without going through the whole 4-year progression, I mean, I'm happy to send it to anybody, but we do voice and movement for our musical theater students. They take voice for the actor in their first year. They take movement in the second year. Our students are doing a type of acting class 1 or 2 times each semester for the first, second, and third year. The fourth year becomes really about that industry prep and a senior comp that they have to do, which is tied to whatever production they're working on that year. But the fourth year definitely does become very focused on electives that they can choose, Shakespeare and acting for the camera, but also just industry preparation. One interesting thing that we did do and explore, and I think we'll talk about this later, is I flipped the curriculum in terms of scene into song and acting the song. So we are doing our partner work in the sophomore year and their solo work in the junior year, which, as we have discovered in this past year, has worked beautifully. And I know my friend Erin Galligan still did the opposite, and it's working beautifully for them. So just another example of how we all have our ways in. But I think one of the big topics this conversation will be about providing multiple ways in, like Scott was saying, providing multiple ways into the process and into the material, I think is what these students are desperate for. They want to be able to sort of build their own process, but if we give them the tools and give them the buffet of tools, they really thrive the best that way. Did I answer all the questions, Scott? Did I get through it all? Did I do it? Great.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong here. We don't believe in that. So we're going to jump in. I put the slideshow into the chat if you want to hit on it. I'm just going to kind of, instead of wrestling, you can tell I grew up in the South, wrestling when I'm with the slideshow. I just want to say that, so we the way we thought of this is that we've shared our perspectives, kind of what we know, what we've dealt with. Now it's your turn. What do you believe are the best practices for actor training in musical theater? Are there such things? We're interested in hearing about your program successes and solutions to curricular challenges. How do you bridge the gap? So we want to exchange ideas. It's really important to us that this 90 minutes is about getting to know each other and about understanding that we are a community, that we're here to steal and share and lift up. Yeah, we want to hear what's going on with yours. You just heard from Nicolette. She ended our little snapshots with, something that, since Erin couldn't be here, about how they flipped the script on their curriculum and the order of the sequencing, and because it wasn't working. And the way they flipped it for Nazareth is working for them. That was the way they were doing it at Slippery Rock, and it wasn't working for them. So Erin flipped it, and this other way, this more traditional way, works. I can say to you that I have taught everything from Uta Hagen to, and I worked with Uta Hagen, and I also worked with Ann Bogart and Viewpoints, and I've seen incredible successes teaching those theories, and I have seen complete and utter failures. And I could not predict why either of them would have happened, other than it was different people involved. And maybe I was a different person in how I was presenting it. So what are some things in your programs that work for you when it comes to actor training? Oh, do I have to do that?
Do we just want people to unmute, or they
Yeah,
want to raise their
why don't you
hand?
raise your hand and then I'll call on you, so we're not all talking over each other, or one of the four will call on you. If you want to raise your hand and let us know that you want to say something, please talk. I know you're talkers. Okay, well, because we'll keep talking. We really
also,
don't.
maybe to break the conversation, I also will say that I think it's probably a daunting thing to say, what are you doing that works? I think we all have things
Or
that
doesn't
we
work.
know and love about our program, and things that don't work. One topic that I would love, that I hope we hit at some point, is that we are teaching completely different students. And I think Ray Sage said this in the last segment, but these post-pandemic students are very different. And I have discovered, as I'm sure all of you have, that speed of speech, anxiety levels, eye contact, physical touch, all of these things have become increasingly difficult. And so treating the human, I think I have discovered treating the human and figuring out how to redo the curriculum so that we are handling the human that's in front of us in order to get the results we want as the actor. I think has to happen first. At least that's what I'm experiencing, is that I have to ask for different types of assignments. I want them to talk more. They write some, but I want them to talk more. I want them to do collaborative agreements. I want them to do more more assessments with their scene partner and then talking about it. A lot of tableau work, a lot of shape work, less about singing songs and high notes, less about all the stuff they're seeing on TikTok, more about the text and just communicating and making eye contact and having stillness. So I don't know if anyone wants to riff off that, but.
Yeah, I mean, because we have been talking for weeks now to prepare for this, and we've really learned a lot about the similarities and the differences in our programs, and also that one solution does not ever fit every program. So yeah, we're just interested, if you want to share, and if you don't, I mean, if I don't get any hands raised, then I will jump in and we'll jump in with some of the things that we've been talking about over the last 3 or 4 weeks preparing for tonight.
I'd like to say something though. I think what's really wait a minute, who is it? Sarah just
Yeah, Sarah said absolutely. Training in mental health first aid has helped in teaching the students of today. Training. Yeah, how many of you are using like some sort of community agreements or some sort of kind of, template that everyone can buy into, either as a department, as a school, or maybe in your individual courses as part of your syllabus, something that goes beyond your regular syllabi language that just says, this is how we're going to handle a variety of things that come up.
I can even speak to Ball State. It was curricular. There were like courses that were instituted over the last 3 years that were a direct response to not just the pandemic, but also from the students. It was really a response to the students' request to be advocates for each other. So I think that there were courses that there were a couple, they called it ideas courses that there was part seminar, but also these weren't performance classes per se, but they were very much about collaborating on presentations and on creating theatrical works that responded to the environment and the culture that they were experiencing. I think because you mentioned talking about the pandemic, the students are so different. I think the kids even now, the first years, I think they were in 6th grade. Maybe I'm trying to think of where they were during the pandemic, right? So I don't think they were as affected as the students 3 years ago who were in 9th grade, 10th grade during the pandemic. I feel like a bigger effect of the pandemic was the students' ability. They were so used to being on a screen, and so they were so isolated. So it made it that much harder for them to be in a crowd, to function, and to be able to speak out and to be heard. I think that we're dealing with students who have different the ramifications that are still, I think, they're still present in the students today too.
We had started to just literally put dip our toes into Thai training, to theatrical intimacy training for production, and bringing in, intimacy directors and choreographers for production when we were going into the pandemic. And then we kind of took a hiatus from that because we were all 6 feet from each other during COVID, and we were trying to find ways to do theater in other ways that were still artistically fulfilling, but didn't involve a lot of physicality. Then we came back and we went right back into that training. This is a good example. It went right back into that training, intimacy training for production, and didn't think about the impact of that in our acting classes or in our musical theater classes. So we have people doing all these intimate things and having all these moments in class. And finally, it took a student to say, why is it we don't do in class what we do in production? We spend all this time orchestrating where you're going to, touch me and how I feel about it. And in class, no one ever asks. We just jump in. So sometimes it didn't dawn on me, I was like, oh, it didn't dawn on me. Like nobody said they were uncomfortable. And they're like, but you know, you don't wait for someone to say they're uncomfortable. You set standards, community standards that we're all going to live by. And so that's just an example that I have of kind of backwards engineering. But I'm really interested in what, if anybody wants to share how their curriculum is working or not working, or solutions that they're finding around any of these matters, anything that comes up.
Say it out loud or put it in the chat.
You can put it in the chat. We'll read it. We'll respond to it there. If you don't want to be seen, you can speak from the ether. You don't have to put your camera on if you're like, you know.
Adrian!
Yeah, welcome, Adrian.
I'll
So,
talk.
yeah, Adrian, what do you have to say?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Adrian Ehlers. I teach at a BA program, so I'm at Wittenberg University, which is a really small university in Ohio. But I just wanted to talk because I think a lot about community agreements. And I don't think our students, well, I work a lot on creating community and just trying to get these students to talk to each other. But I think we've all done a version of this. I start from teaching them about failure because I think with these COVID students, they've just never, there's like a big speed bump that they have to get over. They have to like be sort of Instagram perfect. So getting them to mess up and getting them, starting beginning acting from a really silly place, a place of play, a place of being goofy. I think that's like the hardest thing to get these before we get into intimacy, being silly and stupid. So I think that's just one of my biggest things that I've like leaning into really hard. Sorry about my voice. I'm a little sick.
Isn't that funny? We talk so much about, oh, it's all a sense of play, but then they've forgotten how to play.
It's true, and it's so sad, right? But we're also, and again, this goes back to what kind of student are we training? I'm dealing with, and I'm sure you are too, students that are getting up at 4 in the morning and going working a shift at Starbucks, and then they're coming at 8 o'clock and they're taking all their classes that they are paying for themselves, most of them, a lot of them, at least for me, they're putting themselves through school. So every credit hour that they're taking means something different when it's your dollar. So that sort of is great too. They're holding us to account in a different way because they're feeling the pressure of what it costs to be in that room. And then being in rehearsal all day, uh, it's a different type of student. And so yes, that. Adrian, off of what you said, we started a new course, a 0 credit course that we meet twice the semester called Theatrical Forum. It's the entire department where we put together a community agreement together as a full department. The students had to, it's all student driven, and we broke off into different families, and then we would come back together. We do it for an hour and 45 minutes, a couple times a semester, like I said, and we tackle different topics, pertinent topics of the day, about communication, about race relations, about things that are going on in the world. How are we feeling about things? How's the course load? What are we, right? How are we handling things? And it has lowered the temperature in the space, and it has lowered their shoulders away from their ears. They trust us more because they know we care. They trust us more also to what Scott was saying, because we are doing the tie work in class. We're doing fences and gates. We're having them do that with us so that they understand that we want them to feel safe. So I think those things have made difference for me. I don't know about anybody.
Oh, wait. Acting one course focused on play, viewpoint, solos. Okay, that's awesome. I mean, I don't know that anybody that I've heard from yet has literally made a big portion of their course about boundary practice and theater intimacy. Sarah, where are you at? What school are you at?
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I have lots of animals. I'm at Cal State Fullerton.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I love that y'all break it down that way. I mean, yeah, I think there's a big, I'm old, so I'm a Gen Xer, and I mean, we lived for abuse, and Adrian brought up, they were much better at self-care than we were. I think we did a good job of stopping that abuse, hopefully, which is why they're much better at self care than we were. But I've noticed that for me, it's about them. The struggle that I have most of the time with students, it's not so much that they don't believe that we care or that we're on their side or that we don't want the best for them or that we're not working towards their success. And they're pretty great about taking criticism. At least that's been my experience. My issue is that they have such a high standard for themselves that it's unreachable. And they're not giving themselves enough grace to stay in the process, that they want everything tied to product, everything tied to, will this book me? Will I get booked? Will this mean I get summer stock? Will this mean that I get this summer stock? Will this mean that I get this role? Will this mean I get a principal role next semester? Will this mean that you feel differently about me? And and I always look at them and kind of laugh and go, I've been doing this for 44 years and I don't have answers to any of those questions. So, because the reality is that that's the mystical side of it all. We do all the work so that we are stronger artists, that we have a varied toolbox, that we have a personal process and an understanding of how to do the thing it is that we want to do. But we don't know how ever on any level that's going to be perceived by the public. It doesn't matter if you're Audra McDonald or if you're the girl next door who is just beginning. You don't know how people are going to perceive the work that you are doing. You just have to do the work. And that's the hard thing for them, because they're like, they want it to be quantified. They want to know it's not so much about what grade I get, even though we all have those grade people that are like, well, I get an A. It's more about, will this result in success? And that's the hardest hurdle that I have around scaffolding and sequencing curriculum, so that they're ready for the harder stuff when they've gotten over that, if they ever get over that.
Well, it's like,
I'm gonna say something.
how can our feedback, how can our feedback compare to likes and followers? How does our feedback in a room, in a classroom, compare to, 1,000 likes and a bunch of followers? Their brains are, it's different.
Am I here? Is my Wi-Fi? Oh, sorry. I think that we're now touching on something like, what are some of the solutions that people have found to combat this? I think that's a great way. I mean, I think we're all in agreement that what we're experiencing, because it doesn't matter where we are, the four of us are, different corners of the globe, but yet we're all dealing with the same stuff. And I'm sure many of you are as well. What have you found? Have you found something, a solution, something that you found created positive change in the students, just even if just for a day, for a moment, so that you could feel, as Nicolette said, you felt the shoulders coming down for them. You felt that relief of anxiety. Has anybody found something that really helped? I'm curious and hungry to hear it.
Yeah, I would say, hi, I'm Robin.
Oh, hi, Robin.
Hey, I teach at Southern Miss in Hattiesburg, and we have a graduate program and an undergraduate program, and I teach the musical theater classes there. So, hi, Josh. I saw you wave.
Hey,
How
Robin.
you
How are
doing?
you?
Good to see you. So I was thinking something that does assist is when I teach Suzuki training, and it dovetails with viewpoints, but they're so different. I mean, they're yin and yang. But I think it's something that I have found with students consistently. It's just somehow, and Suzuki does it automatically, simulating the duress that a student would have underneath the lights as a performer. And how would they go about navigating that in a very healthy way with their voice and their movement and their acting? So it seems like they don't have a lot of time with that work to be challenged with some of the things that you're bringing up, because it's so much, duress physically. It's just physically taxing. So I have to teach a series of voice classes, voice for the actor, before that, or they're just going to strain their voices and blow it out, because I've been there and done that. So there is technique that you want to build with that. But I have found that has been effective with actors a lot. And then lately, I just certified in Miller Voice, and it's the same exact concept of the actor is an athlete, and you can teach something to somebody, but then you have to have some level of duress. And what's interesting with Miller is it's not just physical, it can be mental as well. You're dealing with a variety of things. So yeah, I have found those techniques to be very enjoyable for students, in a way. Suzuki is one of those, they're living through it and they survive and they feel stronger in presence. And some will never do it again, and some will want to. But yeah, I have felt for for students, just the physical approach and having challenges is very enjoyable. So yeah, I hope
So
that helps.
I haven't done Suzuki for 30 years. I'd probably die. But my
Oh, you wouldn't.
question, my 25 years. My question is it? I just remember it was so physically taxing,
Yeah.
and that the whole time when I was first introduced to the technique, I was like, oh my gosh, when's it going to be over? Please say that this is over. So my question to you, Robin, is there a way to take that quality and place on something else, like maybe speed up the process of preparation to put something together, or not giving them enough time to dwell on any of these other things that are going on in their head? Would it have an impact similar, do you think, to Suzuki or to this Miller training that you've done now?
Yeah, I think the Miller training, absolutely, because there's so much going on in all the exercises. You're really thrown off, but it's not as taxing. I mean, there are lunges. There's lunges. That's probably the closest that you're going to get to Suzuki. But yeah, I would say just putting it's has a spirit of games in a way, that you're just playing games in this laboratory, and the student just has a lot to maneuver, and I think that can be helpful, and it honestly makes them much less self-conscious. They don't have time. That's basically it. So yeah, I think that could be at least an approach, whatever you're doing, just to keep in mind of what can we just focus on, that they're just laser focused on, so they're not worried about anything else. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Sarah has mentioned something in the chat about top of class check-ins and meditation and breath work. And I feel like this kind of piggybacks, Robin, on your like, don't give them time to think about stuff too. So something I really kind of added a lot more structure to my acting one class this past year with check-ins. So we start with something that's like, share something you love about spring. So, and for some of them, it's really hard. So it's like teaching them that no, your opinion actually matters and you've got one, and they're not allowed to yuck each other's yums. Sometimes someone will say birds, and someone's like, oh, he stole mine. And we say, oh no, you can love birds too. It's okay. And then it moves to one good thing, which I stole from Dr. Michelle Duboskin, where they have to come up with one good thing that has happened to them today, which also sometimes is nothing, I don't know. So then it takes coaching of, did you have breakfast? Was it raining on your, so like what not negative has turned to the positive, just to kind of do the training in, oh, we're in this space, and there isn't just like one good enough way, and we do want you to bring your actual self into the room. And I also did a bit of a send off at the end, which turned out to be an Alaman left. So it just was to practice eye contact. I use a lot of Spolin too, like Kitty Wants a Corner kind of stuff in that practice of having to say a line. But they had the option of a handshake or a fist bump or an elbow, but it took eye contact, make the choice about how you were going to pass someone. And the first couple of days we didn't get it done, it was like, okay, out of time, that's it for today. So in training that, oh, we don't have to get it right. It's not about the getting it right. It's about how far are we going to get with it today? How farther did we get from yesterday? And that it is a game and it is play and it is okay to have fun in a college class.
I think something we've talked about even in our group meetings preparing for this, I mean, something we all talked about was the idea of process, right? It's like, how do we instill the belief that it's process, which will release some of that the urge to get it right, that urge to be perfect. There's not necessarily, I have yet to find an exact remedy for that, but it's a matter of starting every class. I just like to start out on an upbeat note, just so everybody has to share a rose, just something good that happened. And it could be something as simple as, oh, I made breakfast this morning and it was really good. Or it could be my mom just wired me $2,000. It's never been that, but something to that degree. It's just to get them started on an up note. But what happens is eventually somebody brings in a thorn, and I said no, it can't be, because they focus so much on what doesn't go right as opposed to thinking about something that's just positive that then brings that energy into the space. We talk about crossing the threshold into the work when we come through the door. At that point, leaving everything outside, being present. It's just a matter of finding that way to be present. It's so it's a marathon, not a sprint. And that's what I preach in class, and that's what it is for me as a teacher.
So
I
that
love
seems like
that.
oh, go ahead,
Sorry.
Nicolette.
Go ahead, Scott. Go.
I was gonna say that seems like a good segue for us to go from similarities and differences and kind of sharing some of our things, because like whereas you would say leave it at the door, I'm always like, no, bring it into the room and let's deal with it. Like, so everybody has their different approach, but so that it can get wrapped up, and we can move in and we can move into the process and the work. In our conversations, one of the things that we could all easily agree on, even beyond kind of the minutia, the when we're looking at the macrocosm of higher ed and acting training and musical theater, because it always seems to get a second or third space, right? It's always like, it's all about the singing, it's all about the singer, it's all about the dance, it's all about the dance. And it's like, yes, but they're terrible storytellers, so they dance beautifully and they sing great, but they can't tell a story. And then they're like, why aren't they getting better? And I'm like, well, because they just sing great and they dance great, but they can't tell a story. But one of the things we all agreed is that we're trying to kind of, it's somewhat like parenting, that we're trying to create these independent artists that by the time they're seniors and they're getting ready to move on, that we know that they understand that they've found a personal process for their acting, however they've landed in that, and they have a way to walk into the work and they're ready for the work. Because we all know going into the real world, there's not a lot of hand holding out there. There's an expectation that usually when the director's talking to you, for my years as an equity actor, when the director was talking to me, there was a problem. It was never because they were wanting to discuss having a character conference or something. So we're trying to get them to be independent, but we were talking about how do we connect those dots, because we all have these great kind of techniques for how to deal with anxiety, or how to turn around, kind of the feeling in the room, how to get buy-in on the technique that we're trying. But what we were struggling with and what we're thinking about is how do you get them, how do you connect all those dots? Is it sequencing? Is it the way the curriculum's laid out? Is it that, you have to have the vocal training before you can do the physical work and the screaming, or you're just going to be hoarse? Like how have you found, what are those kind of nuggets for each of you that have made it like, this is something that absolutely connects the dots for me? For me, it's about sequencing. It's about the order in which things come to the students. That to me is like, I'll die on that hill. If they get the information before they're ready for it, it just creates a huge problem. And so it's all about when they take what. So these kids that want to jump ahead, I'm like, no, never. I'm a slow and steady wins the race as well. That is where Andre and I are the same. I'm a tortoise.
I agree. Conversely, if they get the information too late, then they don't feel confident, right? If they feel like they're getting some piece of the information too late, there's a lack of confidence going into, and that starts to seep into the work as well. So I agree with you. I think it's about how everything is scaffolded and sequenced. And yeah, again, for me, the shift in scene into song completely changed the entire cohort and the work that they're doing, giving them all of the buffet of tools, giving them the reading and holding them accountable to doing the reading in a way where they have to come in the room and we have discussions, and you have to take part in that discussion. And if you're not present in that discussion, you're not present in class, in which case I ask you to leave. So, and nobody wants to be that person, and there's never been somebody who wasn't prepared. And now the conversations, they're realizing what those conversations, talking about the work, what that does to the work once they're standing on the stage. So I love giving them all of viewpoints and checkoff and composition work and tableau work and a lot of lyrics as dialogue and a lot of shape work, and not just singing high notes and belting the songs. It's really text-based for so long, longer than they're comfortable with. But when that light bulb goes off and they realize that it's about the connection in the scene and the text, everything else falls into place. It has been magical. And someone said the word lab. That's the second part of what has changed everything for us, is that I turned the classroom into we call it lab now. The lights are low when we start. People come a few minutes early. We do breath work. We do sort of meditative work to get centered, and we all start class together. It has changed everything. There's a confidence level and a trust that has shifted all of their work.
Nicolette, how do you handle the situation where students that are going from class to class to class, or you as a teacher are teaching back-to-back sections, and there isn't that becomes like, this is the third time you've had the same student that day. So how do you handle kind of continuing to create that laboratory environment, even though this is the third time with Johnny, and he's sick of your breath work?
That's really interesting. So I do have a situation where I see students multiple times, and it's kind of new actually in the last year or so. I give each class that I teach a different kind of color, a different kind of vibe. So like my Rock the Audition class, right? It's a pop rock class. When they walk in, there's probably Van Halen blasting at 11. It's a different, it's a specific environment. It's a little edgier. We start the work differently. But that acting class, that musical theater acting class, I just feel like they need to be reminded that there is a process, and that it isn't about whatever that highest note in the scene they're about to do is. It's just not interesting. And so we peeled it all back to the fundamentals. And it's so when they walk into that room, even if they do have a class that butts right up against it, I give them a grace period, so 6 or 7 minutes or something. So I make sure that everyone has come into the room, has gotten on the floor, has been able to center themselves, and I just sacrifice those few minutes at the top of the class so that that color of that space, that feeling of that room is different for that particular course.
Awesome. Anybody want to share some other ways they connect the dots? They help these students to find their process, and to understand why the curriculum is the way it is. Y'all are a quiet bunch. Shocking. I like the costume change though, Joshua. That last time I looked at you, you had a white shirt on. Now you have a blue shirt on.
Thanks. I'll share since I
Great.
heard Robin echoing off Robin. I trained under Robin for a while. She's amazing. So shout out to her. Her Suzuki was in fact incredibly difficult, and we were all exhausted and out of our heads, but it was amazing.
Awesome.
I have a different perspective because I'm kind of straddling a school for the performing arts, so I'm visiting inside of there, and a university like as a adjunct. And what I'm noticing inside of these kids is they have such terror inside of choices, like making a choice, regardless of if it's of a flavor of an ice cream or the time of day, or even to walk through a door. A lot of them are, if they feel like they are quote unquote on, they become a fake human. We don't believe anything they say. And then they just do the, I call it basically the musical theater, their fake persona. They go into the performance quality and then no work can actually be done. So what's been very beneficial is the breath work, is the starting off without even going into an assessment or anything else like that, starting off on the floor. I love floor time. But if we talk, I found out if we talk first, it always ends up everybody in their head. And it is, I found that you have to get them into body, especially kids that are singers first, or dancers or anything else like that. And specifically, I changed it up, and the mask work is so important. Pantomime, going back to the roots of clowning, these things have been, I save that for, usually acting 3, but I'm giving it acting 1 now, getting them into the body and getting them out of this. It has to be perfect. It has to be all about getting it right, getting about X, Y, and Z. So putting a mask on, going into those, basically allowing the kid to jump into a fake world as quickly as humanly possible gives them the freedom to just succeed. If it's them, they get in their head, and 100%, it's like, I'm horrible, I'm wrong, I'm this, I'm that. They go into this self-annihilation cycle that it takes weeks to get the kid out of. So body and fake world have been the two things, and that's access through breath and basically giving them, jumping into the foundations of what our world is, which is, pantomime and comedia and all of those things that kind of, the kid wants to go directly to a monologue. But if you even give them the English language, making a choice inside that English language is a barrier. For there's something, and it's going to come out, something broke with the ability to make choice. And we have all been trained that choices, yeah, we have 100,000 choices, go team. If they have too many choices, they shut down, they go in their head. I found like the freedom inside of the mask work and body is opening it up. When they don't feel like they're themselves, they can play make believe all day long, but getting them to that point, if you talk about it, they shut down and they get away from it. So the more I can not intellectualize it and get it into the body first and then talk about it, that has changed. Because I used to talk about it and then do the exercise. Now it's exercise and then let's discuss and discover basically how free we were, because we didn't know what the expectation was. So
Thank you for sharing. That's awesome. Anybody have some more? They're making us work hard. No, it's okay. Okay, well, I will say, I mean, we went through a myriad of different litanies of different things that we try, that we've tried and failed, that we've tried and succeeded. I will say one of the things that works for me does kind of connect to what Robin said. It really is about speeding them up so they don't have time to think. And it does connect to what you just said, which is I just, and Noel knows this because he's worked with me for many years, that I sometimes, they are like dying at the level of work that I'm throwing at them, but they don't have time to question what we're doing, or what the expectation really is. Or like, but what do you expect? And I go, just do it. Just let's get it done. Let's work on it. Let's make this happen. Let's make this whole thing happen. And they get so busy just doing the work that they forget to worry about doing the work. which is one of the ways that it's a cheat. But it comes from the fact that I got to New York and was like waiting for people to like, I don't know, treat me like a student, and no one did. And I was like, oh, so how do I shrink my process? Because my process was really, I had a personal process as an actor, but it was really long and laborious, and I needed lots of time, and I needed to ponder and do things, and suddenly that wasn't necessarily appreciated. So one of the things I do is speed things up. Conversely, there are times that I will also slow it way down, because it has the same. It's kind of the yin and the yang of the two ends of it, and sometimes kind of dictating the pace helps.
When you talk about setting up it for me, when, as you said, Scott, what resonated with the idea is, I try to create room in my syllabus over the course of the semester that gives you a buffer, because there's always going to be days when you walk in with a plan and then that plan's thrown out the window. But then the expectation is, because there's those, well, what I found here in Michigan, they actually read the syllabus. So if you veer from what's on that syllabus, then you get problems. So it's so hard to marry that when we say it's process, but you've got students who are so dependent on rubrics, and they want to know exactly what the expectations are, that it becomes much more challenging. Oh, what did Sarah put something in the chat? The breath and body work, just getting them to tell a quick story. Yeah, nothing dramatic. Yeah, just a simple personal story, and then reflect on the simplicity of it and natural truth behavior. So
Yeah.
can connect dots of what it means to believably communicate a story. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's great.
You know what? I will say the way Andre, I deal with that is I feel like the most of what I do is change my syllabus. I put this schedule is subject to change. Those are the largest words on my syllabus.
I know. Yeah.
And it becomes my reputation within a semester. They're like, oh, he's going to give you a syllabus, and 2 weeks later, it's going to be very different. And 2 weeks later, it's going to be very different, because I believe that we teach the students that are in front of us, not the students we taught last year, or the students we taught 10 years ago. We teach, and so you don't know, no matter how well you plan, you don't know who you're teaching until you're teaching them. And some people need twice as much work to do, and some people need half as much work to do to get to the end point of understanding what it is that they're trying to accomplish. So yeah, I'm always changing that syllabus.
You're lovely. Ugh.
Yeah, I'll just share also. I think I'm always struggling. So I'm like worried I'm talking too much, but I'm always struggling because
there's no such thing. No such thing. No.
My acting one class, it's a BA program, so it's a gen ed class. So I have students who may become theater majors, and this is going to be their foundational, first acting class in college, and they've done a lot, or they might be, football players that got stuck in my class. And so really trying to get these students to be physical and open with their physicality. And so over COVID, like my favorite tool is I bought pool noodles and I cut them in half, because I do like a version of like you have to touch each other with every scene or with every line. And so they'll have to use the pool noodle to like touch or push or, stroke. And so there's no, it's like COVID intimacy, right? There's no intimacy, or there is intimacy, but there's no touching intimacy, but it forces them to interact and to be silly. And it's one of the things that, and like ball throwing, it's like baby steps to touching and to eye contact, because when you throw the ball, obviously we all do this, but you have to make eye contact. It's so simple, but even just telling them like, yeah, this is your first line and you have to catch it. I don't know, something about adding props in class and beginning class has helped a lot.
I love any kind of distraction technique. So I teach other with a peacock feather. I do lots of strange things that I've stolen from people all over the world, and then reworked in my own head, because I do think that the minute students have something to work with, You know, I hate props. Can I just tell everybody personally, like, I'm that director that if prop people love me, I will cut every prop I possibly can cut, because as an actor, I hated dealing with props. But I love props in the classroom. I love props in the classroom. I love people having something tangible to do, activities to do. I'm like, well, you're making eggs. And they're like, I'm like, no, focus on making the eggs. And then talk to them about what you want to talk about. So I think distraction techniques are great.
Sarah, do not make a disclaimer. Do not apologize. This she put something in the chat. I wondered, Sarah, would that be something you could all, is it, you probably, is it safer to use a survey as opposed to having this be a conversation? I guess it's just much easier, especially at the beginning of the year. Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, hi, sorry. Yeah, it's just like a Google online survey that they do, and it just gets me to kind of know them before I see them a little bit in person. Also, some things they may not feel safe to share in front of their peers. So, and it also is a good guide because at the end of the semester, they can go back and review that and see, like, monitor their growth of like, oh, my fear wasn't as such a big fear, or hey, I actually did grow in the way that I wanted to, or I strengthened a weakness. So it's a nice like gauge that I think has been like successful.
So how do you find out how they accept, or how their progress through this message? Is it through like a journal entries? How do you
Yeah, we
get
do.
that?
Yeah, we do a lot of I'm big on reflection.
Reflection,
So, like
yeah.
after everything, like we talk about like how do you feel about that? Like what did you think you did well? What do you think you can improve? Because I think some students so want the like that was bad, that was good. And I was like, art is subjective. Like, it's all interpretive. Like in your own personal journey, where have you grown? What have you improved on? Where can we go now?
It's so interesting, the whole idea of reflections too, because some students, they really consider it busy work, but then if you get, as a teacher, I found I get the most information about them through their reflections.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Eventually, yes, they're much more honest than they would be otherwise, I think, with themselves and with
Question for you, Andre and Sarah. Do y'all give time in the class for reflection, or is it something that they do outside and then they turn in?
I do both. Mine is both verbal and written. So after every assignment, we reflect immediately. Instead of me like going directly to feedback, I go like, well, how did you feel about the work that you just presented? What do you think you can work on? Okay, great. We align. Like, you align with what my notes were. So, there we go.
Yeah,
That's great.
Mine are mostly, they're all reflections on Canvas. Don't we all love Canvas? So I have, they put up after every assignment. Matter of fact, they have to make a reflection. I started making them shorter though, the requirements shorter, though they still tend to become longer. The shorter the requirement for them, the longer they become, which is interesting.
Yeah, and we do feedback on their peers too. So not criticism, but like feedback, because hearing it from their peers hits a different way than hearing it from your teacher. So we do like a mix of everything.
We do it on scene work, but it's a lot of it is make sure it's to keep them accountable to each other. I'm talking about the peer evaluations, to make sure that they're accountable to their partners, because sometimes some partners don't show up. They're not as attentive to rehearse. It's more of a rehearsal log than it is anything else, as far as a peer review.
My students love the video. They do video diary reflections after each unit, and they do have a time limit. So, which means they have to give it some forethought, and they can't just like and their way through it. They have to have some notes. It's pretty succinct, but attached to each unit, and they really love it. And going off of what Sarah said, using that critical response process, Liz Lerman's stuff has really changed things too about how the students give feedback to each other, how to speak to each other, and also how to observe with specificity and without questioning someone's art. Uh, and it's been a game changer. So they're all great, really great things.
I just wanted to add, I use a similar thing, Sarah, with the pre-survey, pre-course survey, and some of the other things that I have on there are, is there someone you would prefer to partner with? Give me your top 3 choices. Or is there someone you would prefer not to partner with? And I also always say, I'm not making any promises, don't tell me why, but so that I don't put the X's together, in a class. So I'm not creeping into their business, but also they can kind of give me some insights, and also topics that they're interested in exploring through a monologue or a scene, and also topics they would particularly like to avoid, again, with no explanation, but just getting some of that info before I accidentally assign them something that is not going to work well for them. And also they upload, thanks to, I forget what it is, it's Brightspace at my school. It was Blackboard at my other school forever. But before they bring any monologues into class, they upload their choices, so that we have a collection of many monologues by the end. So some of them are throwing monologues in there all the time. And then once they claim one, they say that it's the one they're going to do. But then if anyone is worried about what they're going to see on any given day, they can read ahead about what other students are working on, and then they can talk to me if there's something that they want to not be in the room for or something.
I do a version of that. I
Yeah,
love
I do too.
everything you just said. I do a version of that as well. The other thing I ask them on their form is, how can I best support you in the semester? So in terms of their um, any accommodations that sometimes, students will share and sometimes they won't share, but in that form, they tend to be honest, knowing that it's just coming to me, and they'll say a way that they learn best, or ways in which I can make their learning easier. Um, yeah.
I do something similar. It happens at the beginning of the semester, the very, very beginning, and then around midterm, and then at the end. And it's a way for them to kind of like set learning objectives, their own, and in doing so, let me learn a lot about how they learn and who they are. And then if they feel like they've achieved those goals, because it's not, in the end, it doesn't really matter if I think they have. It matters if they think they have. So I do something very similar. That is a great way, a private way. I like your idea though, these video logs. I'm stealing that, Nicolette. That's a takeaway for me, because I'd
Steal
much
it.
rather like run through those instead of reading. I'm tired of reading journal entries.
At 1.5, by the way, you can go through them at 1.5, right?
That option was really helpful for one of my perfectionist students last year, who just would never kind of commit to paper the play reports on time. And I said, well, in a conversation, I know you read it the way you're talking to me. I said, would it be easier if you could just answer the questions on video? So that was a great fix, because she was doing the work. She just was not getting it uploaded in time because it wasn't good enough yet. And I could, all of my attempts to hand in the first draft, hand in I want you to submit a terrible paper on time or within 3 days of all of those had not worked. But when it came to turn on the camera, tell me the answers, submit.
How are they submitting it? Just directly to the,
On Brightspace, Blackboard.
I'm sure, yeah, Canvas, we have Canvas here. I'm sure it
Yeah.
has some, they can submit. I guess that'd be in the submission, when I create the assignment, yeah.
Does anybody use Loom? Loom?
I know you said loom, but I heard womb. Yeah, no. Explain to me what Loom is.
So Loom so you can have your students, they can upload all their video work, their scene work to Google Drive, and then Loom allows you to pop your little face in the corner, and while you're watching it, pause, give a little feedback, and just give it back to them, and they can see your feedback in real time. Um, Attached to that video, attached to that assignment that they sent in. So does that make
Can you find
sense?
this in the App Store? Is this in the App Store?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Another
Yeah,
thing I'm
I
seeing.
haven't totally investigated the entirety of it, but it's really, really helpful. It's a time saver, and they like being able to, it's a way for you to isolate a moment in a scene and stop the video and say that, or that flicker in your eye, or that breath, or something, and then you can watch the whole thing and just make little comments and interject.
Thanks, Sarah. She put the link in the chat to Loom.
Yeah. Yeah, go.
Downloading now.
Yeah, yeah. One other thing I introduced in my scene into song class that has changed their work for some reason is character confessionals. So I've asked them to do. Adrian's like, yeah, I've been doing that for 100 years, Nicolette. Get on board, get on board. But I wasn't doing it, and now they're doing it in every unit. And like I introduced it by saying Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Of course, that wasn't the reference to use with these students. So then I said The Office, and they were like, "Oh, got it." Yes, thank you, Julie. um, but having to be creative and imaginative and write their own thing leading into a scene where we split the stage, and so it's a two-hander. They each have to do a character confessional, not connected to, as though they're not even listening to each other, right? And then go into the scene. It's just really interesting. I don't know. I hadn't done it before.
So
It was a
as we're
light bulb
starting to
moment for
get
me.
this kind of list of takeaways, and which is great because we want that, right? And we're going towards the home stretch of this. I want us to also, can we have a little bit of a conversation around how do we make this all work when it's not an acting class? When the thrust of the class is a music theater scene study, or it is some sort of integration class where they expect, and you're collaborating with your collaborative pianist, you may be operating as a music director, or maybe you even have a voice faculty member who's co-teaching with you, and you are literally, you all have goals. And they, just like you do when you're in production. And also, how do we take this work that we're doing in the classroom into production? Because as Nicolette, as you and I have talked about, this is such a problem as we get into rehearsal and we realize that all the things we're teaching and they're getting down in the classroom and we're so proud of them, and then we cast them in a show and we're like, what is going on? You're not doing any of the things that you know how to do. And so how do we work towards making sure that we're attending that process, but also they know how to use that process in a variety of different circumstances without kind of all the hand holding?
Well, I would just say, because I've been teaching about the same as you, Scott, that many years. It's really creative classroom management that you're focusing with a student on one thing. Hopefully everybody's learning, because you learn mostly by observing, more than if you're in the spotlight. And then you're going on. So you're skill building, but it's not with every single student you want to assess every single thing. It's just impossible with the amount of time, or the amount of time that I have with the musical theater students class. So I would say that's just one idea. And now I'm getting really, I mean, I don't want to use the word obsessed because it seems very, very strong, but with the collaborative nature of the student body, the students giving more feedback, that we're not just trying to solve something. We don't have all the answers, but collectively just figuring out what data can the student get that's up there performing that can assist them, but it's coming from everyone. It's not just coming from one leader but this facilitator. So I don't know, those are just some strategies that may assist.
No, that's great. Sorry, I literally cannot use my buttons. Um, um, so no, that's great. I think that's true. I would say, this has been a new phenomenon going into these new places, because I was at the same school for like 17 years, and and kind of doing it my way. And then going to another school and being at different schools for the last couple of years, I've been like, wow, seeing where these holes are in preparation and how to fix those things. It's funny because they're really fixable really quickly. I hate to say that. Like, we get a little obsessive, or at least I get a little obsessive, like, oh my gosh, if they don't get this, it's all going to fall apart. It's a house of cards. They're not going to reach the, where they need to reach. But I have to say, dropping into these programs through the last couple of years, we've been able, like, I was like, oh, none of y'all know how to behave in a rehearsal room. Okay, well, we can learn how to do that and put the show together. Or you don't understand anything that I'm talking about. Okay, that's okay. Let's share vocabulary. Okay, what acting methodology have you had? Oh, you did this. Oh, that is this. If I use this term, or here are the 3 terms I could use that are interchangeably, all could be tactics. And so I think they're hungry for knowledge, but they're hungry for context. Which I find funny, because I feel like they live most of their life out of context, but they seem to, in the classroom, really want context. So that's what I've been trying to do. That's been my latest obsession, is kind of pulling in and saying, oh, that's a great idea. And you know how you can use that? You can use that over here. Hey, have you talked to this professor about what they do? Because that's the same thing we're doing in this classroom, but that's about, sword play, and I'm talking about choreography. So yeah.
I think
Sword play.
also for me, oh, go ahead, Andre.
No, you please.
I was just gonna say, in terms of performance, I'm in a flipped situation because our students don't have enough classroom time. And so they really are learning to act and perform in rehearsal for the shows. They're on stage a lot more than they are in class. And so I'm taking a lot more time to, I'm like Nicolette said, I'm just sacrificing those, time in the beginning of rehearsals. It's not sacrificing, because I'm taking time to do more table work, more community building, more questioning, more, what are the ways that this scene could go? What might we do with this? There's a lot of ways I could see this. What do you think about this? It's not so top down, because I know once we get rolling, it's just the wheels are going, we got to get on the time. But just taking a first day or a couple of days of rehearsal, to even getting in a rehearsal, like a warm-up practice of 5, 10, 15 minutes, has been huge in terms of getting the students free enough to be themselves in rehearsal.
I find that it's hard to get students to be free. A lot of what I'm focusing on, particularly when you get students, and I'm getting them now. When I was at Ball State, I had them freshman year, first year, and now at Michigan, I'm getting them a sophomore. Um, so, but I'd say the similarity between the two is that it's still really difficult to get them to just to use themselves in that way, because there's so many of them are watching YouTube, and they're watching these performances on YouTube. So there's pattern, a lot of what they're doing, they're using that as their template for how to present for themselves, as opposed to being themselves, using themselves in that way. So I think it's been really, enlightening, trying to get them to understand who they are. Not just who they are, but very, Scott, you'll know what I'm talking about, or anyone who's read Uda will know how the idea of using your authentic self and um, expanding your idea of yourself to where you're only not, attributing the good things, good ways of looking at yourself, as opposed to the things that would be perceived as negative, because a lot of students don't want to, just like they don't want to be wrong, they don't want to be perceived as wrong, or perceived as negatively by their peers or by their teachers, certainly. So, so much of what I focus on at the beginning of the year is them ex expressing, finding out who they are so they can share that. Like I do an exercise where they have to attribute who they are, like one quality, an adjective to describe themselves, and have them go out of the room, and their classmates will do the same. And oftentimes it's different. They walk in the room and they're like, they thought, what? No. I had one young lady who was really upset because they called her, because they described her as bitchy. No, they described her in a way that she perceived as bitchy. And so it's like, no, because they said she's curt, they said she's very direct. So she perceived that as a bitch. I was like, well, no, but there's nothing wrong with being direct, because that means that you are very intentional about how you feel about yourself and your opinion of the world. So that's not bitchy, but it's so hard to get them not to embrace things that aren't necessarily flowery. It's it's I think that's a huge um, a huge mission on my part of trying to instill in the students that idea. Oh, we need to be wrapping up soon, don't
Well, I
we?
was gonna say we're at our we've got 5 minutes left, and we kind of mushed everything together. Everything went absolutely not according to plan, just the way I
Just
love
like
it.
class.
Just like my classes. Just a little manic, but we get there in the end. But the thing is, what I would say is my whole goal for Andre and I talked about this as the co-heads of MTE acting. We really just wanted to get people in the room. So for the 14 of us that got into this room, and to let people know that we want to deconstruct that same top-down thing too. Like, what I loved about MTEA when I joined it in 2007, when I was but a babe, was that it was such a small group back then that literally they nursed me through my transition from the professional world into academia, because graduate school didn't really do that for me. I mean, I did all the work, but it didn't tell me how it was going to translate to actually dealing with students. And so if it had not been, they do a better job of that now. But if it had not been, Robin understands. If it had not been for this group, I'm sure I would have, been imprisoned. But the thing is that I really feel that we want to get back to that, and the reason for these subgroups is so that we have smaller groups who have, similar issues and like-mindedness, or want to debate something. When it comes to, we have a conference coming up in the winter in San Diego this year. We'll have some more of these kinds of online supplemental, like, Zoom events, but we also have the ability to have guest artists or choose those. And we're trying to figure out the best way to get everybody to engage in that, so that I can hear what Robin wants to hear about, or what, Jeff wants to hear, or Doug, or I want to know, beyond what, it can't just be who Andre and I are friends with and that are willing to come for a little amount of money. Andre has much better friends than me. But the thing is, they're much bigger than I am. He's worked with much bigger names than I have. My people are dead. So, but the thing is, but I will say we just want to know what we want to talk about, and what we want to, like, there's lots of things we didn't get to. I know Nicolette wants to start a revolution when it comes to this, several different things. And so I'm there to fan that flame and get that revolution going. It's been such a great experience getting to know Julie Lynn, because I didn't know her before until we worked on this. We want different groups of people. There is no hierarchy. You don't have to have been in MTEA for 20 years or 20 months. I don't really give a fuck. I just want us to be kind of in community with each other, so that we're not alone, because most of us are one or two people in a program, and we are alone. And so when we go to talk to the acting faculty about how we're struggling to get acting values in music theater, they go, does it matter? They're just doing musical theater. And then I'm going to, after I've stabbed them, and they're laying there bloody on the floor, and I started saying, something from Chicago and they don't understand what's wrong with me. I really need the community. I think we all do. So please, please, please do not hesitate. We've both given you our personal emails. They're on the Facebook page. If you're not on the Facebook page, even if you're not on Facebook, I don't really care if you're on Facebook, be on the Facebook page. Like, you don't have to talk to anybody else. Put stuff in there. We want to start doing essential questions. What's happening at your school? What's going well for you? Are you having a bad week? Do you need someone to give you a call? We can be a phone a friend. We just want to find ways to connect, because I have to say my best teaching has come out of conversations like this. I know going into starting at Nebraska Wesleyan in the fall, I'm stealing a lot from these three people that I've spent, the last few weeks talking to, because they've had lots of great ideas that I'm like, oh, I used to do that. Why did I abandon that? That's a great thing. And they just reminded me of a lot of things that I don't always focus on, because we need that diversity of idea and thought and personality. So please come play with us. Please don't hesitate to reach out to Andre and myself. We are like the rest of you. We're super busy. I'll tell you the truth. I will either reply immediately or in 3 weeks. There's no in between. But I will reply. And Andre knows, like, sometimes I go, I know you're asleep or you're putting the girls to bed. Please reply in 3 days to the following question. So yeah, we all keep strange hours. We all have a lot going on. But yeah, that MTEA Facebook page is right now our way to communicate. We can expand that. We can create, a Google Drive, a document, even though I hate Google. But we can do whatever it is that will work for all of you, so that we can get to know each other better and we can start to work together collaboratively. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Adrian, everybody. Oh, it's good to see your face, Doug. I'm just so excited to get to know all of you. Yes, put in those. We're going to get all of these emails.
Doug, long time no see.
Like 20 years.
Molly's
That's how
upstairs.
business works.
Say hi to
please,
Molly.
Yeah, please, please, please. Thank you all for coming to this and taking time out of your summer. I know you're all super busy, and please, let's keep going. And then give us a bunch of ideas. I know I've seen some of you at conferences before. I know I'm pretty sure I went to Kimberly's presentation at the last conference with her students there in New York. But please, everybody's coming from a different perspective, whether it's a high school program, whether they're a college coach, whether they are teaching at higher ed, if they're between jobs. Everybody download Loom, make that work for you. And let's make sure that we keep this conversation going, because 90 minutes is not enough time for theater people. Okay. And then I hope a bunch of you will come to San Diego. We get a lot done over cocktails. And you can see Noel Jones and his beautiful baby Zeidel and his wonderful wife Hannah, because he's in the MFA program there in San Diego State. And yeah, what do you want to say, Andre? Julie Lynn, I love Dr. Barber. Isn't that a great Dr. Barber? Dr. Julie Lynn Barber and Nicolette Hart. Do y'all have things that you want to say to wrap it up?
This is great.
Yeah,
Thank you for joining the conversation.
It's nice to have community when you feel kind of isolated in your day-to-day. So it's really exciting. And I do have La Révolution that I want to talk to people about. She
does. And can I just tell you, this tells me how much these people are dedicated to this. We all know none of us are getting paid for this time. Andre's on vacation with his family. Nicolette's on vacation with her family. Their biggest concern
I'm on vacation. This is a s'more.
It's a s'more. So they're still giving time to MTEA. So let's do it again. Let's talk soon. And thank you all for coming to our
Make sure you reach out. Reach out if you want to join the Facebook group. No, reach out and join the Facebook group. We'll hook you up.
Just join it. We will hook you up. And then always feel like you could post. Please don't wait for me to post. Post.
Yeah, Scott's good at posting. All right. Thank you, everybody.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming.